Weed control should be a carefully planned and coordinated program. Controlling weeds in landscapes can be a difficult endeavor because most landscapes contain a variety of trees, shrubs, and bedding plants, which makes choosing herbicides difficult. There are many often overlooked chemical and non-chemical weed control methods that can significantly improve weed control and reduce maintenance costs. I'm Dr. DeBusk, and this video will discuss how to manage weeds in the landscape. The concept of right plant, right place has been embraced by many in the landscape design and maintenance industries as a way to avoid some of the most troublesome insect and disease pests. Though this design philosophy may also suppress weed growth, it has rarely been used for that sole purpose. Light stimulates the germination of many different weed species. In nature, these species quickly colonize a site that has been opened up by some sort of disturbance. Weeds invade by filling in voids. Designing landscape beds so that ornamentals will occupy most of the space will prevent many weeds from establishing. Choosing dense growing plants that are best suited for your area will help fill in voids more quickly and partially shade out weeds. Using fast, dense growing ground covers in areas not suitable for turf can suppress weed growth and in most cases reduce the need for water and fertilizers. Lists of possible ground covers for Florida can be found at the Florida Friendly Landscaping Plant database. The best time to control existing weeds in an ornamental bed is before anything has been planted. Herbicides such as glyphosate can be used to control both annual and perennial weeds. Depending on the weed species, these herbicides typically take 7 or more days to completely kill larger weeds. After the existing weeds die, the area can be tilled, graded, and prepared for planting. It is very important to know what kind of plants will be planted into an area before using any herbicide. For example, imazaquin is a common turf and landscape herbicide used to control purple nutsedge and other weed species, but it should not be applied to areas where ornamentals, especially bedding plants, will be planted within 1 year. Halosulfuron is another herbicide that should not be applied to areas in which ornamentals will be transplanted within 3 months. A list of post-emergence herbicides labeled for use in landscape planting beds is given in UF-IFAS publication ENH 1262, Improving Weed Control in Landscape Planting Beds, at the address shown here. A more complete list of post-emergent herbicides labeled for use in and around ornamentals and landscapes is available in UF-IFAS publication ENH 95, Post-Emergent Herbicides for Use in Ornamentals, at the address shown here. An effective non-chemical method of reducing annual weed pressure is to repeatedly till, allow weeds to germinate, and then hoe and till again. This process works by essentially depleting the weed seed bank in the upper layers of the soil surface. Each time the area is tilled, the small weeds are allowed to germinate. The amount of weed seeds lying dormant in the soil can be reduced. Soil solarization can be a very economical and effective method of controlling weeds and other pests before planting, though it is typically only effective if done during the summer months in full sun areas. This process also takes about 6 weeks to be effective, so it may not be feasible in some landscape situations. More information can be found in UF-IFAS publication EMY 062, Introduction to Soil Solarization, at the address shown here. Container-grown plants may contain weeds. Always check the media surface for presence of small weeds and remove them before planting. While most of the weeds on the media surface may be buried during planting, many weed species can continue to grow, especially since supplemental irrigation will likely be applied to new planting areas. Eliminating these weeds before planting will help to reduce future weed pressure. Properly irrigating landscape beds can go a long way in reducing weed growth. Many common landscape weeds, such as Eclipta and chamber bitter, require high soil moisture levels in order to germinate. Using conventional overhead sprinkler systems to irrigate landscape beds can cause increased weed growth because bare areas will be irrigated. Using micro or drip irrigation systems instead of standard sprinklers helps to reduce weeds because water will be placed only where desirable plants need it. This practice also helps to conserve water and reduce water bills. Excessive fertilizer use in landscape beds promotes weed growth and may damage ornamental plants. Fertilizers should be applied to landscape plants only when needed and according to UF-IFAS recommendations. Most established trees and shrubs require very little fertilization, so any excess fertilizer may promote weed growth. Weed and feed products should not be applied near ornamentals, nor should they ever be applied in ornamental planting beds, which means multiple fertilizer types will be needed to be purchased to fertilize all areas of the landscape. The timing for fertilizer and herbicides are often not the same. For example, for summer annuals, you often apply pre-emergence herbicide in February, while fertilizer shouldn't be started until March. In most cases, you will be able to better time your herbicide and fertilizer applications by applying them separately. In many cases, this practice may also be more affordable. Mulching is one of the most effective weed control strategies in landscape planting beds and provides additional benefits, including improved soil characteristics, increased growth of ornamental plants, decreased irrigation demand, and enhanced planting bed aesthetics. In many cases, mulching can be just as effective for weed control as herbicides. Apply organic mulches at depths of 2 to 3 inches. This depth effectively controls weeds without causing damage to ornamentals by smothering their root systems. Inorganic mulch can often be applied at shallower depths of 1 to 1.5 inches while still providing weed control. However, it should be noted that these products are more expensive, more difficult to apply, and do not add organic matter to the soil. There are several other non-chemical weed control methods that are effective, including hand pulling and cultivation, though the major disadvantage of these methods is that they are typically time-consuming and can damage ornamentals. More information on advantages and disadvantages of each of these methods and other non-chemical methods are available in U.F. IFA's publication ENH 1262, Improving Weed Control in Landscape Planting Beds, at the address shown here. An herbicide is a chemical that is toxic to one or more plant species. Herbicide classification is based on application timing such as pre-emergence and post-emergence, plant translocation such as contact and systemic, target weeds such as sedgehammer that are specific for sedges, and selectivity such as selective and non-selective. Herbicides are not just one of these, but a combination of these. For example, glyphosate, commonly known as Roundup, is a post-emergent systemic non-selective herbicide. A list of herbicides labeled for use in landscape planting beds is in UF IFA's publication ENH 1262, Improving Weed Control in Landscape Planting Beds, at the address shown here. A very useful way to classify herbicides is by their ability to move through plants. The herbicides called translocated or systemic move very well through vascular plants, either by entering foliage or moving through the phloem tissue like Roundup, or by entering roots and moving through the xylem like soil-applied atrazine. In reality, many systemic herbicides move through both xylem and phloem, which are separated by one single layer of cells. If all goes well, a systemic herbicide kills the entire plant, roots and all. Contact herbicides only kill the green tissue they touch. Usually that's because these herbicides destroy cell membranes and disrupt translocation. Alternatively, contact herbicides may bind to cell membranes or have some other characteristic that makes them unfavorable for translocation. Contact herbicides are effective against annual weeds but don't have much effect on many perennial weeds. One of the best ways to group herbicides is by a characteristic called selectivity. Herbicides called selective kill some plants but not all plants. Usually the herbicide will kill broadleaf plants but not grasses, or vice versa. Sometimes the selectivity is much more specific. For example, a herbicide may kill annual grasses but not perennial grasses. That's selectivity. The herbicides that selectively kill broadleaf plants include 2,4-D, clopyralid, and bentazone. The herbicides that selectively control grasses include clethodim and cethoxydim. The photo shows an example of how selective herbicides are used. The untreated turf is full of broadleaf weeds. The treated side is weed-free and the grass is undamaged. You can also have selective applications by correctly timing that herbicide, such as when the susceptible plants are dormant, by applying very low application rates or applying it away from susceptible plants. Non-selective herbicides kill all plants. These herbicides can be used for bare ground pest control, where everything is killed but only bare ground is left. Glyphosate and diquat are some examples of non-selective herbicides. Use of pre-emergence herbicides can significantly reduce the amount of time and money needed to hand pull or spot spray weeds in ornamental beds. Pre-emergent herbicides are applied to the soil and absorbed by root and hypocotyl of the emerging weed. Many homeowners or landscapers avoid using pre-emergence herbicides in landscape beds for fear of damaging ornamentals. While it can be difficult to find pre-emergence herbicides that are safe to use on tropical species or annual bedding plants, if applied according to label instructions, many pre-emergence herbicides can be applied over the top of woody shrubs and trees without causing any damage. You must apply pre-emergence herbicides at the appropriate soil temperature for specific weed seed germination, which may be February for summer annuals and September for winter annuals. It is best to split the applications 4 to 8 weeks apart to ensure coverage for late bloomers. Pre-emergence herbicides include active ingredients such as oryzalin for weedy species, pendimethalin, and prodiamine. Once applied, pre-emergence herbicides must be activated by rainfall or irrigation in order to work. Most products typically need to be watered in with 0.25 inches or more of rainfall or irrigation soon after application, within 3 days to a week or more depending on the product. If pre-emergence herbicides are not watered in, erratic or inconsistent weed control may result. If overhead irrigation is not available, try to time the pre-emergence herbicide application with expected rainfall or use portable lawn sprinklers to water in the product. Irrigation is the preferred method because very heavy rainfall soon after application is likely to increase lateral off-site movement, which can lead to environmental concerns. Avoid pre-emergence herbicide applications if heavy rainfall is imminent. Drip or mist irrigation is recommended in planting beds to conserve water. These micro-irrigation systems may also work to reduce weed pressure by placing water only where it is needed near plant roots. However, it should be noted that these systems will not properly activate pre-emergence herbicides. If micro-irrigation systems are used, the herbicide will still need to be watered in using the methods described in the previous slide. Disturbing the soil surface following an herbicide application will reduce herbicide efficacy. Remove existing weeds prior to herbicide application and try to avoid disturbing the soil surface after application. In order to avoid injuring ornamental plants with pre-emergence herbicide applications, the following precautions should be taken in most cases. Do not apply granular herbicides to wet foliage. Do not allow granular herbicides to become trapped in whorls of foliage or remain on leaf surfaces after application. Do not apply pre-emergence herbicides during times of bud swell, bud break, or when ornamentals have tender new flushes of growth. Before applying pre-emergence herbicides, ensure plants have been thoroughly watered after planting and that the soil is settled. Do not apply pre-emergence herbicides to ornamentals that are not on the label. Irrigate as soon as possible after application to wash herbicides off of plant foliage and activate the herbicide. However, it is important to note that these precautions are only general guidelines and applicators should read product labels and follow instructions for each product they are applying. If weeds still begin growing after proper cultural practices, mulching, and using pre-emergence herbicides, post-emergence herbicides can be used to spot spray weeds. While most post-emergence herbicides should be applied as a directed application, some can be applied over the top of certain ornamentals if listed on the herbicide labels since they are absorbed by the leaves. While over-the-top applications can be a useful tool in some landscape situations, it is critical that the application be according to label instructions and that the application equipment is properly calibrated. If these herbicides are applied at higher than recommended rates, ornamental plants can be severely injured and may not recover. Post-emergence herbicides are most effective when weeds are small and actively growing. Avoid spraying flowering weeds since the weed will still set seeds and release them as they are dying, increasing the problem. Effectiveness of these herbicides generally is reduced if the weeds are under stress. If perennial weeds are large, try spot applications of a translocated herbicide in late summer or early fall. The herbicide usually must remain on the plant several hours to be effective. The length of time the herbicide needs to stay on the weed must be absorbed is called rainfastness. Check the herbicide label because the time can vary by herbicide and by herbicide formulation. Therefore, be sure the herbicide isn't washed off by rain or a sprinkler within the specified period. It is generally recommended not to irrigate after application for at least 6 hours. Also, don't mow after the application for at least 2 days. Also, try to avoid applying post-emergent herbicide to weeds that are wet from dew, rain, or irrigation. It is often more effective to spray post-emergent herbicides in the morning after the dew has dried. Wind is usually the calmest in the morning, reducing the chance of herbicide drift onto nearby ornamentals. And plant metabolic activity tends to be higher in the morning, which facilitates herbicide uptake and movement within plant tissues. A list of post-emergent herbicides labeled for use in landscape bedding plants is in UF-IFAS publication ENH 95, Post-Emergent Herbicides for Use in Ornamentals at the address shown here. In order to avoid ornamental plant injury from post-emergence herbicides, the following precautions should be taken. Do not allow herbicide spray or drift to contact ornamental plant tissues unless the product label indicates otherwise. If accidental contact is made, wash herbicides off of plant foliage as soon as possible, or if a systemic herbicide is used, prune the section of the ornamental that is contacted to minimize potential damage. Ensure over-the-top applications are made only to ornamentals listed on the product labels. Systemic herbicides should be used with extreme caution around plants that sucker. Some ornamentals may not recover from accidental contact. In this video, you hopefully learned some strategies for controlling weeds in landscapes, including cultural, mechanical, and chemical control strategies.